Are you renting a car in Melbourne? Well, in this video you will discover everything you need to know, like the car rental location in the airports, or how you can save big money at the petrol stations, how to find economic parking or absolutely free of charge, and how to find the most economical rental company still super trustworthy. But stay with me in this video because at the end we reveal also 3 scams that you can definitely avoid in Melbourne. There are 2 airports in the city. The first one, the main one, north of the city, has 95% of the flights. And that's where probably you find the cheapest car rental prices. So where are actually located the rental companies? Well, you have 2 possibilities. One is in the airport and the other one is outside the airport. The one at the airport are actually located into the parking area facing the Terminal 1, 2 and 3. The Terminal 4 is about 200 meters from here. It's just an easy walk in. Now, to go on the other side of the road, you have 2 ways. You can go up to the departure and get that little bridge, but you can also go to Terminal 2 where you can easily cross the road over there and then you go to the rental company. Usually these companies are more expensive than the other companies that have a location outside the airport and they will pick you up with a van. But obviously they are more practical. The second airport is in Avalon, which is around 1 hour west of the city. And it's a good option if you're renting the car to go to the Great Ocean Road or to the Grampians, because you're gonna save around 1 hour, 1 hour 30. The car rentals are just outside the gate of a small airport, and one advantage of this small airport is that usually the flights going from, for example, from Sydney to Melbourne, they cost less than going to the main airport. In saying that, the rental prices can be higher than the main airport. So you're not gonna save much money, unfortunately. You can also decide to rent your car straight from the Melbourne CBD, and that makes absolutely sense if you're planning to spend a few days before starting your trip with a car and you're already into the city centre of Melbourne. There are plenty of rentals here in the CBD. For example, my back there is a 6th office, there is a Budget just further up next to the Southern Cross station, but there are other car rental companies spread around the city, both local and global players. However, as a rule of thumb, usually the rentals here in the CBD tend to charge a tiny bit more than in the airport. Or maybe sometimes they have specials, so you never know. And that's why for the last 5 years I've been using a comparative website that is a sort of Airbnb of car rentals, where all providers are ranked between 5 and 10 stars from customers like myself. And what I usually do, I filter just above 8 stars, so I get the most trusted companies and I book the cheapest price from there, as easy as that. I haven't been disappointed so far, and that's why I suggest it. Also, try to book your car as much in advance as possible, and usually they have a free of charge cancellation up to 24 hours from pickup, which is very handy, especially if you change your plan. What documents do you need to rent a car? Well, obviously a valid passport and a valid driving license. Now, if you don't have an Australian driving license, it's not a problem if your license is written in Latin letters. However, if it's written, for example, in Chinese, Japanese, Arabic language, then you need to have also an IDP, an international driving permit, that you can do in your home country for around $20–30 US. Important advice here is that you always need to carry with you when driving the passport, the driving license and the IDP if applicable, because the police may want to check the lot. And now let's talk about car rental insurance. Well, I went deep into this subject on my video that I'm gonna put in the corner here about renting a car in Australia. In this video, I want to say briefly that whenever you rent a car here in Melbourne, it comes with a mandatory third-party liability insurance, and more often than not also with a CDW, which is the collision damage waiver, which will leave you out of pocket only for an excess between $500 and $5,000. Personally, I suggest to top it up with a full insurance, because it may happen to scratch or dent the car, and when you return they're gonna charge you between $500 and $1,000 for a single scratch. If you do a full insurance, for example, on the website I suggested previously, it's gonna cost you only 15 Australian dollars a day, which is roughly 8–9 euros or US dollars a day, which is absolutely a bargain considering the peace of mind that it gives you. You should check out also your credit card, because sometimes they cover this excess, but read through the small print, because for example my credit cards covers that excess but it gives me another excess of $300 to $500, which certainly helps, but it doesn't solve the problem if I cause a small damage. Traffic is not a big issue in Melbourne and around the city, unless you're driving in commuting time like now. So try to avoid driving around the city between 7 and 9 a.m. and between 4:30 and 7 p.m. For example, now it's 5 p.m. This is a road coming out from the city along the coast, absolutely peak time. Most of the roads and streets around the city have a speed limit of 60 kilometers per hour, like this one here. But once you approach the countryside, the limit goes up to 80 or even 100 kilometers per hour. However, pay attention when you approach the shopping areas and the CBD, the Central Business District, which is the center of Melbourne, because in that areas the speed limit goes down to 40 or even 30 kilometers per hour. There are a few highways around Melbourne. Some of them are free of charge, which is great, but others have tolls. And these tolls are totally cashless, which means there is a camera that is going to check your number plate and charge based on that. For example, where I am now, which is a very busy road, you can take the M2 to go to the airport, but you have to pay a toll. It's about $8 to go there. Or you can go to the southeast suburbs and you take the M1, and also in this case there is a toll. Now, how can you pay actually these tolls? If you plan to stay in Melbourne for a few days, probably it's worth to buy the visitor pass, where you can connect your number plate to your credit card. So the company managing this highway, which is linked, we charge automatically your credit card based on the number plate. Alternatively, you can ask your car rental company to pay for you, but then pay attention because there is also a manager fee on top of it. Some companies, they're gonna charge you based on the number of the days that you rent your vehicle. Other companies gonna charge you based on the number of the days actually you go through the tolls. And other companies, again, they're gonna charge you based on the number of the times that you're gonna go through the tolls. And there is a little bit of a scam in the charging actually of these tolls, but I'm gonna go through it in the last section of this video, where I talk all about the scams that you may encounter when you rent a car in Melbourne. Parking in Melbourne is not that bad. I will talk more about Melbourne CBD, but outside of the CBD, the city centre, usually there are enough available parking areas, and they are wide too in case you have a big car. There are two types of parkings. The first one is a meter parking or ticket parking, like you see the sign here on my back, and that's where you have to pay for parking there. And then there is a number defining how many hours you can leave actually the car in that parking area, 1, 2, 3 or 4p. The interesting thing about Melbourne is that sometimes even on the same street, one side can be meter, therefore you have to pay for that, and the other side of the street is not meter, it's free parking. So it's always convenient to check around the side streets or the side of the road where you want to park, because you may be able to save some money on parking. Before going to the ticket machine, I'll show you also other signs that are here around, which are quite interesting. If you see this sign, means that on this side of the street you can't park unless you have a permit. Sometimes the accommodation can give you the permit, but if this is not the case, don't park in this area if you don't have a permit zone, because surely enough you will get a ticket in no time. And this is a 4p area, which means you can park up to 4 hours free of charge. In this case, for example, you can't park on the right side of the pool, but if you park on the left side, you can leave the car for as long as you want, and it's free of charge. And this is the typical ticket machine that you're gonna find around Melbourne. You can usually pay with a credit card, either Visa or MasterCard. You can also decide to pay with an app. Usually on the side of the machine, they give you also the QR code to download the app, where you can connect your credit card and pay as you go. And my tip here, if you plan to stay actually for a few days in Melbourne and park the car around, then download the app, because it's gonna make your life so much easier. By the way, what's the cost of parking? Well, it really depends on the areas where you are. For example, in these areas, which is South Melbourne, it costs $2.70, which is actually a very good price, because For example, in St Kilda you're gonna pay $7, and let's go to CBD to check around there. Parking in the CBD may be more challenging than outside of the city center, and most of the areas, if not all of the areas, are actually metered. Typically you can park for max 1 or 2 hours, and it costs around $6 to $7 an hour. So what's happening if you want to park actually longer, or if you want to park for the night? Well, you will have to organize a garage for you. The tip I can give you is to get organized with a garage before you actually come to the CBD, because there are different prices for different places. For example, this car park charges $25 for just 1 hour. In saying that, they have special prices for early birds and night rates, so you have plenty of options. Petrol stations are plentiful in Melbourne and around Melbourne too. The best way to find the petrol station is just to use Google Maps and search for gas or petrol. And this is also my favorite way to look for the best prices around Melbourne, because the cost of a petrol, like for example in this petrol station, is $1.87. It can be different based on the petrol company, can be different based on the location, and also on the day of the week. So it's totally worth it to check on Google Maps what's the best price around you, because you can save up to 20%. And for the last 2-3 years actually, I've noticed that the petrol goes usually from $1.60 to $2.20. So there is quite a bit of a change. The price is very similar to what you find, for example, in the US, and it's about 40% cheaper than in Europe, which is great if you're planning to drive around Melbourne and possibly Australia, because you're gonna save quite a lot compared to a trip, for example, in Europe. The way it works is very, very simple. You enter the petrol station, you do the petrol yourself, there is no service in Australia for that, and then you go to the little shop over there where you pay based on the petrol that you put into your tank. As easy as that. Melbourne is a very safe city. However, when you park the car, never leave any visible object inside the car. Put it into the boot, especially any valuable object. Don't forget any computer or any camera or your mobile, for example, on the back seat of the car. I had a friend, for example, just a couple of years ago, who left his computer on the back of the car just to go to a local cafe, and they broke into the car, so they damaged the car, plus they got his computer. Big money, of course. You will also see signs like lock it or lose it. They suggest you to lock the car when you leave it, which is obviously a no-brainer, isn't it? And what car trips can you do from Melbourne? Well, there are several of them. The most famous one is to the Great Ocean Road, and I have written and made a ton of videos about it, which I'm gonna put all in the video description, as well as to the Mornington Peninsula, my favorite spot for my summer holiday. Incredible beaches, beautiful blue water, and on the ocean side, some great surfing. Besides some of the best wineries of Australia. What do you want more? Another beautiful trip you can do is to Phillip Island, where you can see the penguins, and once again you have amazing beaches and fantastic surfing. Another place that comes to my mind are the Grampians, around 2 hours from Melbourne, with fantastic gorges. And once again, I'm gonna put the links to all of these destinations into the video description. You may ask yourself if taking public transportation is actually a better idea than renting a car. I am here, for example, at Southern Cross Station. Plenty of trains going in different destinations in Victoria, and also to Sydney and Adelaide. Well, let me tell you one thing. If you plan to stay mostly in Melbourne, then public transportation works better, because you won't have any issue with parking. But if you want to visit the countryside, places like the Great Ocean Road, Mornington Peninsula, then public transportation won't work, just because there are no direct train to there. Of course, there is always a way to get to a destination, but you may have to go through multiple forms of transportation. For example, the first leg with a train, then a regional bus, then a local bus. You see how much time you're gonna use to get to a destination that with a car is gonna be very, very easy. And in this respect, if you want to experience more of the beautiful destinations around Melbourne, then renting a car is definitely the way to go. And now let's talk about 3 possible scams when renting a car in Melbourne that you can definitely avoid. You see this little scratch bump on the car? This can cost you up to $1,000 when you take it back to your car rental company. And if you have done it, you can definitely avoid it by doing a full insurance, of course. But some of the companies are gonna claim even pre-existing damages to the car, so you will have to shell out up to $1,000 based on the excess of your insurance, assuming you don't have a full insurance, of course. This is definitely a scam, of course, because the damages are pre-existing. In order to avoid that, whenever you pick up the car, always do plenty of photos of the outside of the car and also the inside of the car that you can use as a proof, so they can't claim that these damages were caused by you. The second issue, which I consider to be a little bit of a scam, is when the car rental offers cars with a limited mileage of maybe 100-150 kilometers per day. And I'm quite sure they know they're renting a car because people want to drive around Melbourne. So what's happening here is that they offer you a fantastic daily rate, but then maybe 15-20 cents over the limited mileage. So for example, you pick up a car from the airport because you want to visit the Great Ocean Road, which is usually 600-700 kilometers round trip. And if you have a 100 kilometers per day, you're gonna end up spending maybe $60-70 at the end of your trip for extra mileage. And you soon realize that the fantastic deal that was supposed to be was not that great, isn't it? And for this reason, I always suggest renting a car from a car dealer offering unlimited mileage on the car. And the third important thing is always to take care of the extra cost for the toll handlings. So check it out with the car rental company before finding out at the end. A visitor pass can definitely be a solution, or just use Google Maps to find alternatives in order to avoid these tolls. And here I am from a place you really want to visit if you're renting and driving a car in Melbourne. This is the Harbour Park Formula 1 track. And next to me on the right side, there is also the Formula 1 pit stop. How exciting can be actually to drive around the original Formula 1 track when it's open, which is every single day of the year except when there is the race. There is a catch, however, the speed limit is only 40 kilometers per hour. But besides that, it's a great fun. And in this iconic place, I'm gonna close this video. And if you're still with me, I guess you appreciate the effort in making the video, so please click on that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I will have more videos on Australia in the coming weeks. And with that, I'm gonna close the video. Bye bye, ciao ciao.